How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the New York Jets franchise on Madden 20. I hope you all had a safe and enjoyable holiday weekend. We are halfway through our fourth season. It is week 8 right now, just before the trade deadline, and I wanted to take some time before we advanced in order to take a look at the roster as well as show some stats for our team and the league as a whole, because I haven't been doing that after games very much. And you guys should be aware of what's going on elsewhere in the league. The trade deadline also is our last chance to acquire big names that will help this team make it to the Super Bowl, and that's definitely been a goal for me in this series. And with Madden 22 on the horizon, this is likely going to be the last season in the New York Jets franchise, so it is Super Bowl or bust for us this season. I don't think there are any glaring weaknesses on this roster, but I wouldn't mind adding another solid wide receiver to take the pressure off of Jamison Crowder, because CeeDee Lamb hasn't been a playmaker that we've been looking for. He's still a really good receiver, but hasn't been as consistent as I would like. Here's a look at the standings across the league after the first 8 weeks of the season. Not everybody's played 8 games because of bye weeks and stuff. Our bye week is actually week 9, so we've not quite gotten there yet. But we put ourselves in a strong position to make the playoffs. We are 6-2 after the first 8 games. We've managed to avoid losing streaks thus far. We just have 2 standalone losses. And that has me confident going into the second half of the season that we can take care of business and return to the playoffs. We do have our work cut out for us, however, as there's a lot of good teams in the AFC. Houston has the league's best record. We know how good Indianapolis can be, and the Patriots currently hold a tiebreaker over us for the AFC East title, although we do have one more meeting with them later on this season. The NFC has a lot more parity in their records thus far. That playoff picture is going to get complicated, as basically everybody is still in contention. As for our own division, it's basically a 2-team race. The Dolphins and the Bills off to subpar starts. It looks like we'll be chasing New England during the second half of this season. So now we get to talk about this roster in the context of their statistics through the first 8 games. Our passing game has been inconsistent no matter who is under center. You can see the completion percentages are down for both of our quarterbacks. But at least the run game has been solid as well. Willie Sparks averaging over 5 yards a carry and 7 touchdowns on the season. He's had the lion's share of the carries, as Anthony McFarland hasn't been rotated in nearly enough. He's also had to share carries with Reggie Bishop, which hasn't necessarily helped. I'm also not scrambling with LaMarcus Albert very much. For our pass catchers, well, it's the Jamison Crowder show. He's got by far the most catches and yards on the team, and he is one of only 2 players with double-digit touchdowns for us thus far. CeeDee Lamb has been inconsistent and one of the big disappointments on this passing game in my opinion, and Kadarius Hodge has been serviceable but hasn't seen a lot of targets. If this offense has a weakness, it's our over-reliance on Jamison Crowder to move the ball through the air right now. We're not spreading the ball around very much. I also want to sub in Eugene Hilbert and Kurt Pitts more often because they're just not seeing the field very much. I think our offensive line play has been really solid, however, and the numbers back that up. We're allowing less sacks per game, and I feel like I have more time to throw in the pocket. We've also been consistently winning at the point of attack in the run games, so I'm pleased with how our offensive line is playing. On the defensive side of things, I have very few bad things to say. Kel Kohler has stepped up into a true number 1 middle linebacker. I'm very pleased with his development here through this series. He's really turned a corner for us. Deshaun Elliott has been a really good signing, and he's made his presence felt at safety. James Delgado continues to be a leader on this defense, and Eric Armstead is having a strong season as well. Our pass rush is probably the one thing I want to see improve going into the second half of the season here. And that includes me playing around with where people are lining up on the defensive line. If you remember, we started the year without cornerback Levi Wallace. He missed a big chunk of time with an injury, but I honestly don't think our coverage suffered any as a result of him being gone. So now that he's back, our defense is even stronger. And that is good news, as the defense has really been the identity of this team the last couple of seasons. I'm really proud of the defense that we've constructed over the course of this series. We've got depth at every level, and sometimes it's a challenge for me to ensure that we're rotating players in, because we've got a lot of players that should be seeing the field, and it's just hard to get them all on the field. If I had to pick a position on our defense to upgrade, it would be right outside linebacker. They do tend to have less of an impact on the pass rush because that's the default side to drop back into coverage. You're going to see James Delgado blitzing a lot more often than Kayvon Chazen. So it's possible you'll see more Michael Walker than Kayvon Chazen lining up in obvious passing downs, just because Walker has better pass coverage stats than Chazen does. With our special teams unit, I have no problems here. Brendan McLendon has really settled down and has been close to automatic after a tough stretch to open this season. Braden Mann has also been very consistent for us. I'm expecting he'll be named to the Pro Bowl again. He's punting just over 3 times per game, which is way down from where we were earlier on in this series. Boston Scott has struggled on kick returns as long as just 31 on the season, and his average is down from his career average, but he's been excellent on punt returns. 17 yards per return has consistently helped us flip the field. On to some league stats here. Madison Hakiba was the other quarterback taken before LaMarcus Albert. He's been setting the league on fire and is likely to garner some MVP consideration if he keeps this up. He's averaging 325 yards per game for the Colts, who we will meet in Week 17. Both teams could have a lot to play for at that point, so I'm really excited for that matchup. Russell Wilson is off to his usual torrid start. 21 touchdown passes paces the league, but rookie Neil Jordan is arguably having an even better year. For the Pittsburgh Steelers, Hakiba not far behind with 19 touchdown passes. Cam Newton with 17 and a whole bunch of 15 and 16 on the season. Daniel Jones leads the league with 9 interceptions. Rookie Lawrence Fryer not too far behind. It's nice not to be leading the league in that category again. Christian McCaffrey is your rushing leader thus far. He is having an incredible season. But Willie Sparks is just 1 yard behind Joe Mixon for second place, and might find himself in the best running back conversation as well. Le'Veon Bell is having a bit of a career resurgence in Arizona, averaging over 6 yards per carry for the Cardinals. It looks like both teams benefited from that trade. Jamison Crowder's fast start has put him in second place in the league for receiving yards, behind only Willie Snead, who is averaging over 100 yards per game for the Ravens, who we will meet in Week 12. I still vividly remember our Season 1 game against the Ravens, where Lamar Jackson had like 400 yards passing against us. Kel Kohler leads the league in tackles. We'll take this conference by conference to get more accurate numbers here. J.J. Watt is off to a great season here in Cincinnati. He signed with them in the off-season and leads the conference in both tackles for loss and sacks. He's got an outside shot at Michael Strahan's record, and we will actually be part of his chase for history. We'll take on the Bengals in Week 15. That should be another good matchup. On the NFC side of things, Alex Anzalone for the Saints is just ahead of Fred Warner in terms of tackles. Danielle Hunter leads the NFC with 10 tackles for a loss, while Kenny Clark paces them with 9 sacks. Isaiah Simmons has 8 sacks on the season. I'm glad we don't have to play them this regular season. There's a couple of Buccaneers at the top of the list for interceptions in the NFC. As far as kicking goes, let's take a look at the whole NFL. Brendan McLendon with more than twice as many field goals made as the next kicker. And that right there paints the picture of our offense. We'll see more in some numbers later on, but we're having to disproportionately rely on our field goal unit in order to put points on the board. At least we're not punting very often. Braden Mann is middle of the pack in terms of the number of punts. Not a whole lot of information to glean from kick return, but Boston Scott is the league's best punt returner, hands down. So the numbers here are a little bit skewed in favor of our team because we have not had our bye week just yet, but we are currently 4th in the league in total offense. We again have one of the worst passing offenses in terms of yardage and the best rushing offense in the league. We are really evenly balanced between passing and rushing in an era where you don't see that anymore. The Colts lead the league in points per game. They've got a really explosive offense. We are upper middle pack at this point. But with only 18 offensive touchdowns, we're getting a big boost from our field goal unit and the strength of our defense. I'd love to see us put the ball in the end zone and really finish drives rather than just settling for 3, because we do move the ball fairly well. We are average in terms of first downs, but we're just not finishing drives. So now with the defensive numbers, our bye week or lack thereof is working against us. We are definitely an above average defense, and our pass defense especially has been pretty strong this season compared to previous seasons. On the flip side, our run defense hasn't been as good, and it actually ranks as one of the worst units by yards allowed, which surprised me. We're usually really stout against the run, and I thought we upgraded our run defense over the off season, so it might just take time for those elements to gel. We are a top 5 scoring defense, however, which is excellent. And I think we can only get better, especially if our pass rush is able to be more consistent. Interestingly enough, there are several teams who have not recovered a fumble this season, as the Vikings and the Chiefs only have 1 forced turnover each this season. That is rough. And we actually lead the league in interceptions with 12. As far as third down conversions go, Saints completing 2/3 of their third downs. That is impressive, but we are likely to be under 50%. Oofda, 45% through the first 8 weeks. We can definitely improve on that. So this is why I'm interested in bringing in another wide receiver. Third down is oftentimes a passing down. Alright, so at least our red zone efficiency is good, although that is propped up by 9 field goals in 20 attempts. We can definitely do better in terms of scoring touchdowns. But nice to see us at least getting points when we get to the red zone. And those numbers look really good on defense. Just 9 touchdowns allowed on 25 attempts. Good for a 76% scoring percentage against. Those are good numbers. Penalty numbers are weird. Turnovers is a little bit better, however, in terms of spread around the league. We are a +2 on the season, 10 giveaways, 6 fumbles lost. Wow. We've not had good luck recovering fumbles, as that is the most fumbles in the league. Alright, that's enough numbers. Let's go on to the trade deadline here. I want to add a wide receiver, or at least look into it, and there were a couple options here. John Ross is on the trade block. His name is synonymous with speed. 26 years old, 97 speed, 97 acceleration. He can really stretch the field, but I don't know if that's what this offense needs. LaMarcus Albert is hit or miss when it comes to deep balls, and speed doesn't work how it should on all Madden. The AI defenders get speed boosts, which makes it really hard for even someone like John Ross to get separation. He also isn't great with his route running or his release, and doesn't have elite hands. So he probably won't be very good in contested catches. So I decided to look elsewhere, and there's not a whole lot on the trade block that would be any kind of upgrade over what we have right now. So I decided to take a look at the Los Angeles Chargers. They are 0-8 on the season. They have not won a game, and their defense is really struggling, but I was wondering if they wouldn't be opposed to trading Keenan Allen. He's 30 years old and is still one of the best wide receivers in the league. He's definitely lost a step with age, but his route running ability, his hands are exactly what I'm looking for, and we could potentially add a top 10 wide receiver. In return, we're probably looking at some serious draft capital along with at least one starter. And Marlon Davidson is a solid defensive tackle who just hasn't been seeing the field very often. So I put together a package with this year's first round pick and Marlon Davidson for Keenan Allen, and decided to submit that offer to the Los Angeles Chargers, aware that it probably wouldn't be enough to bring in someone like Keenan Allen. But I was surprised at how much more they would be looking for in order to make this trade go through. So I went back to the drawing board and decided to add some more value, and threw in next year's second round pick as well. See if this could get us in the ballpark, but that is still nowhere near what they were looking for. And I ultimately decided to pass the trade deadline without making any moves. Bringing in Keenan Allen likely would have required 2 firsts and a quality starter. So in the end, their asking price is higher than what I would be willing to pay. We go with the extra rest and relaxation over the bye week here in week 9. I would like to keep this team as healthy as possible because I think we've got a lot of season ahead of us. So the +2 injury avoidance is huge. We also get a couple of upgrades as some of the players were due for that. Keith Geathers gets a nice upgrade here. I'd like to get him onto the field along with CJ Mosley a little bit more. And also Elijah Cook, our rookie left tackle. He gets an upgrade here, and we also know his development. I forget if I've told you guys or not. It was just revealed an episode or 2 ago, so you may have already spotted it. But Elijah Cook has superstar development. I've been really pleased with his play thus far this season, and I'm very grateful to have some stability on the left side of the offensive line, because we have a big test for that offensive line coming up here in week 10 against the Vikings. Not only do they have Danielle Hunter, they still have Yannick Ngakoue in this series, as well as Michael Pierce, giving them a really fearsome defensive line. That being said, it's been a difficult season for Minnesota. They are just 3-5 through the first 8 weeks. Anthony Barr is out with an injury. Harrison Smith left in free agency. And their switch to a 3-4 on defense has not been without its growing pains. The offense still has Kyle Rudolph, Adam Thielen, and Dalvin Cook. But one of the bigger stories for the Vikings thus far has been the injury to superstar wide receiver Justin Jefferson. He's dislocated an ankle. He's out for a couple more weeks. And this Minnesota offense is very different when he is not on the field. The other big story for Minnesota, however, has been rookie quarterback Lawrence Fryer. He surprised a lot of people by declaring if he probably stayed another year, he would have been an easy #1 overall pick. But there are questions right now about his arm strength and his deep accuracy. That being said, he does a pretty good job moving around the pocket and is willing to take off and run for first downs. You might remember that Fryer's NFL debut saw him throw 5 interceptions, But he's been a little bit better since then. He now has 12 touchdowns to 8 interceptions on the season, and did lead the Vikings to a 3-game win streak over NFC North rivals, including a sweep of the Green Bay Packers. I'm really curious to see how he will perform against our defense, especially without his number 1 target in Justin Jefferson. So that is all for today's episode. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you are as excited about the second half of the season as I am, and like always, I will catch you next time.